Men of Reddit, what instantly makes you lose respect for another man? Story 1. When they try to size you up or throw you for a loop when you first meet them before anyone says a word. Like, "Fucks, bro, we 'bout to scrap, and I just met you 5 seconds ago." There's gotta be something mentally wrong with dudes that are trying to get violent when you first meet them. This is way beyond ego. Answer. I was on the subway once, and a guy had a speaker connected to his phone, blasting music, annoying everyone. He was sitting there brooding, wearing brass knuckles. I'm not even joking or exaggerating. That guy was just looking to fight. Some dudes have seen too much, had too many horrible life experiences, and they just have nothing left but anger, and they just want to fight. Story 2. Men who let other men tell them what it means to be a man. Men who define their manhood from podcasts and influencers and social media, rather than just being the man they are. All men are different. Some are really into cars. Some are veterans. Some work with their hands. Some like to play Magic the Gathering. Some work in an office from 9 to 5. Some dress up in costumes of their favorite video game characters. Some are single dads with girls and learned to braid hair watching YouTube videos. They're all men. Be who you are. Story 3. If upon meeting me, a man, you have need to somehow compete or show you're more than me, but like in a subtle way. The kind of guy who can't listen to a story and just enjoy it, but feels like he needs to come back with a bigger, better story. If you talk about your job, they need to find a way to suggest what they do is more important, makes more money. It just screams insecurity. And if you can't make yourself look good without putting someone else down, that's just a bad sign overall going forward. Answer. Shared a few college classes with a guy like this. If you had a black cat, he had a panther. A few, years on. He's not invited to any get-together with the college friends that still talk, has no long-term friends of his own, and switches careers every 6 to 9 months. We've discussed it and honestly believe it was a deep-seated level of low self-esteem that came out as desperation to tell you how awesome he was, instead of having a conversation like a regular human. Story 4. I knew someone who treated women like objects and lusted after them, even in professional settings. For example, talking about a female's jerk while she was working. I dropped him like a hot potato. I later heard that he has SA allegations. And another person lived in the same apartment building as him and told me that he acts like this towards all women. He was a big shot in the industry I worked in at the time, so I knew a lot of people, also male, who knew him. We all thought he was a POS. Story 5. A friend who is more than willing to drink beers bought by his buddies. However, when it's his turn to buy a round, either has to leave, doesn't have the money, or somehow or other weasels out of buying the round. Then he has the nerve to do it again the next time, thinking people don't remember his cheap jerk ways. He may not realize it, but he has lost the respect of his friends. Answer. This is something that always bugged me about myself. When my friends would invite me to a party or whatever, I'd be like, I can't. I'm broke. I can't afford to bring any adult beverage or buy any later. I would always get hit with, come over anyway. You don't have to drink. So I would then get asked by the same guy, why aren't you drinking? Bro, I said I'm broke. I'm not going to freeload. Hands me a beer and walks away. Like, WTF to do in those situations. Happened to me with several friends. Was super poor at the time. Story 6. Going to take dislike for this, but a man that can't control his emotions. Men are generally bigger and more dangerous. When we cannot control our emotions, we can be dangerous to women, children, ourselves, and other men. Not talking about denying them, but being aware and able to emotionally regulate is essential. Getting help if you cannot is vital. Answer. Thank you. I'm 59 and my ex was 63, and I'm actually scared of dating tall men now because he used to purposely menace me with his size. He would lean against the door to trap me in the room with him, so he could argue with me for hours upon hours. He would take my phone so I couldn't call for help, and it was like trying to move a refrigerator out of the way. I have an Apple Watch now with its own SIM card in case a man ever tries to snatch my phone again, and I have a gun. Lol. Story 7. Men who are incapable of making a decision without the wife present. One time I was working at a computer store, and a guy brought in a copy of Office that wouldn't activate. I was like, oh dang, must be a faulty code. I'll issue you a new code. He was like, how much is that? I was like, completely free. I'll get it swapped out and then we can install it for you. He was like, no, I have to ask my wife first. Story 8. Infidelity. Really how they treat women as a whole. I don't know. I was raised in a house with all women and learned early on that it's very important to be an ally to women and make them feel safe. Men who degrade or belittle women just rub me the wrong way. Story 9. Sounds old school, but a limp handshake that makes me feel like I'm holding a dead fish? In my eyes, it's a mutual respect type thing. On the flip side, I lose an equal amount of respect when someone tries their hardest to squeeze the life out of your hand. Story 10. How excited they get and talk about how the next actress, singer, influencer, who is 15 to 17-year-old turning 18, because then it's okay to talk about them intimacy. Showing off pictures of your intimacy conquests. That's great, you were able to bang that fresh, divorced 40-year-old in the club's bathroom, but I promise you, she doesn't want everyone at the job site to see her titties or rear private area. How your adult beverage of choice determines if you can talk to a guy or not. Apparently, if whiskey, if anyone is wondering. Story 11. Happy wife, happy life. Or my whatever won't let me do whatever. If you're voluntarily making a decision to make your significant other happy, that's selfless and great. It's good to put people you care about first sometimes. But if you're too much a social coward to own that, or if you're genuinely afraid of wanting what you rightfully want for fear of retribution, get out. As I write this, it occurs to me that I may be judging men who are being psychologically abused. If so, it's crazy common. Story 12. Narcissist arrogant with nothing to back them up. Got given a gift once, and when I thanked him, he said, yeah, it's just what humble people do. Give away things without expecting something back. It's in my nature. My brother in Christ. You are bragging about being humble. Story 13. This thread is full of comments of things that are very generic. Anyone would dislike a guy who kicks dogs. That's not specific to men. As a man, I lose respect for men when they don't know how to cook. I have a coworker who, when his girlfriend, who works as a nurse, is unavailable to cook dinner, always either orders pizza for he and his son or makes tuna sandwiches. He has never truly answered the question of, why don't you cook, in the years I've known him. Story 14. But when he bragged to me and another parent about never changing his kids' nappies and would wait until his wife was home to do it, then I just stopped acknowledging him. Full stop. It pissed me off that much. Story 15. Men who think cheating earns them bro points are embarrassing. It's not impressive, it's not masculine, and it's definitely not something to brag about. The moment a man boasts about cheating, I lose respect instantly. At a minimum, it shows a lack of integrity and basic respect for the person they're with, and honestly, for themselves too. Story 16. Alpha male, manosphere. Only war makes you a man shoot. Usually that also comes with crypto is the new art and fudge democracy. This country needs a strong leader. There's just so much wrong about all of this. Like talking to a lizard who's remote controlled by a phone. Story 17. Dudes that instantly shoot talk people, especially if it is their partner. Guys that normalize keeping secrets from partners. No, not sneaking a bit of ham at Christmas or something, but bigger things. I once met a colleague for the first time, but we'd both been at the same meeting earlier that day where a speaker had stuffed up a bit. It happens. Barely said our hellos, and he started talking about how crappy said speaker was, who was a few levels his junior. This was years ago, and I still can't really bring myself to respect the guy. Manliness isn't about being alpha and bringing others down. Story 18. Catcalling. Aggressively or awkwardly hitting on women in front of me. I was talking to a coworker once. Mid-conversation, he just rubbernecked around to look at this girl's jerk. and then said, "Darn." The dude just interrupted me, ignored what I was saying, and then substances me into that awkwardness. I just walked away from him and never thought very highly of him again. Story 19. There are many things, but the biggest one for me is not looking after your family. I'm not talking about paying bills. I mean being present. Take them for walks. Play with them. Teach them the things you know about life. Just be a dad. Too often I see men leaving it all up to the moms. Don't be that guy. Story 20. Talking down to servers in restaurants, or anyone in service industry. Finding out they are abusive to their kids or significant other. Not putting a cart back at the store. Not helping around the house. Finding out they steal from people. Not defending your wife and kids. Letting anyone in your family walk over your spouse. Any alpha bullshit. Story 21. Talking about women like they're objects. I was an assistant coach for this women's college team a few years ago, and I hung out with a friend of mine with two unknown acquiescences to me. Immediately, these guys start talking about how they imagine most of the women on the college team prefer positions in bed manners. As these guys say stuff like, "Oh, number 9 gal is definitely a starfish type." Of course, they say other things that irks me the wrong way. I didn't go hang out with them since then, and I don't care one bit about these guys. Story 22. And you can't help but complain, make jokes, and belittle them. Why? To impress other men? Story 23. Treating women like shoot, using them just to get their male body part wet. I don't stand for that shoot. Y'all want to complain about women with high body counts, but then be willing to stick your male body part in as many women as you can? You are no better than the women you shame. Obviously, I know not all men are like that, but those are the ones I can't fudge stand. As soon as anyone says anything derogatory, insensitive, creepy about a woman, I'm done. Story 24. Leaving and not having anything to do with your kids. I understand relationships don't always work out or whatever, but not being in your child's life at all is inexcusable. Just because you aren't with their mother doesn't mean you stop being a father. Man up and take care of your kids. Story 25. If they're hatefully racist. If they're a meanie who runs away if their friend or their girl is being attacked. If they're a woman beater. If they're an animal abuser. If they're a child abuser. If they treat the homeless like shoot, especially if they do it with a smugness. Story 26. That he preaches or backs things that he doesn't actually have knowledge of, the most common being a certain political party that thinks they're doing what's right without ever actually thinking. I often say I can't respect anyone who feels passion for things they're ignorant of. Story 27. Most things go for both genders, but if I had to pick one that's especially for men, I think it would be the guys that can't get past any female without trying to shoot their shot. Weirdly enough, it's about 50-50 that the guy is in a relationship but still does it. Story 28. Disrespect for their spouse. Treating servers, customer service people badly. Acting as if your ignorance is better than someone else's knowledge. Not providing for your family. I am not talking about stay-at-home dads or the disabled. I mean the people that have kids, sometimes lots, they never see or provide for outside court orders, or who sit around smoking dope and playing video games all day. And actually, the latter goes for everyone over 21, even if they have no kids. Story 29. Racism and bigotry. Hold your misconceptions and shoot beliefs if you must, but keep them inside when you're outside the privacy of your own office, so to speak. Work to improve that. Shed your irrational hatred of other people who are just trying to not die every day, just like you. Oh yeah, leave that shoot at home on your way to vote, in everyone's best interests, not your own. Story 30. Being pridefully ignorant or anti-intellectual, boasting about how you haven't read a book since middle school, or about how you only watch XYZ because you think other shows or movies are boring, doesn't make you seem more masculine. It makes you seem like an uninteresting dumbass. Story 31. Talking about what things real men don't do. For example, laundry or sewing. This just screams I'm insecure. Telling about how they would attack, take down someone who hurt their family, thus ending up in jail, not able to be there for their family. Treating retail staff poorly. Story 32. MAGA, Rogan fan, doesn't read, doesn't care, lacks empathy, doesn't tip, doesn't perform basic chivalry or help others, doesn't wash hands, calls women nicknames and thinks they're being charming, needs to speak first, needs to be right, doesn't listen, doesn't have any hobbies, is a real estate agent, dyed beard, rides a Harley Davidson, slaps a child, doesn't offer to pay or split a bill. I'll just stop. The list goes on. Story 33. Incoming list. 1. I dislike the macho man, man's man, and old school guys. You're trying to give vague excuses for lacking personal growth, independent and original thought, and the ability to be a decent human being. My girl cooks and cleans. I won't do that. I genuinely hope every man like this falls down a small flight of stairs once each day, never suffering a major injury, but always major inconvenience. 2. Homophobic comments. I'm not gay, but I'm a huge ally, and the homophobic dudes are catastrophically bad people anyway. I hope these men sit directly on their saggy balls for the remainder of their time breathing, every single time. 3. Ask my relative's name here, jerk dudes. You can't argue on your own merit, so you have to bring in other people you think should be important to the conversation we're having now? I can't respect somebody who can't stand on their own legs. 4. Deadbeat fathers. I know a dude who has 4 kids, only has partial custody of one. One is living 6 hours away from him that he knows exists and has never met. One he sees once or twice every 3 months. One his ex straight up took away because he was abusive. We'll get to that one in a second. And he lives with his youngest because he managed to successfully alienate the baby's mother and now does nothing to help her out. A child she has said out loud she didn't want, but he told her he'd leave if she aborted. He's a genuine piece of shoot, and I wish nothing but totaled cars on him and the scum like him. Of course, he's the victim, by the way, because why should I fight if they feel that way? What's the point? 5. Men who abuse the people they love. Immediate and total loss of respect. You tell these people daily that you love them, and yet only ever give them the worst version of yourself, unless they're giving you everything you want. That's not love. That's control and domination, and not in a sexy kind of way. Sometimes arguments get heated, and both people say things they maybe shouldn't. But when every word is dripping with venom and malice, maybe don't be with that person, you fucking schmuck. Or with anybody, frankly, because nobody should trust you. The talking down, the gaslighting, the insults, putting your hands on your partner out of anger, fudge, foul. If my girlfriend and I get into a fight, I kiss her and shoot calms down. I cannot imagine putting my hands on her in anger. We have agreed that if I'm offered $1 billion to punch her in the face, I'm doing it. No contest. We're in agreement. 6. Dudes who watch men's podcasts. Not like, it's not cool to be a husk of a human being, a wraith, cosplaying being useful. Fudge. Let somebody hug you. I would, but you aren't worth being around until such a time as you get the first ones. I can keep going, but this is already long. Do not fudge these dudes. Story 34. Performative women's approval-seeking behavior. Men are just so toxic. I cry thinking about women having periods. I just think if women ruled the world, there would be no wars, no hunger, no strife. Just peace and prosperity. Like, shoot the fuck up, Sir Cuxalot. Story 35. Thinking everything in terms of masculinity, femininity. That's a girl movie. That's a woman's job to do. Especially when it comes to kids. Like men refusing to change diapers because that's not their job. Or berating their kids for acting like a kid. Or liking girl things. To me, it just sounds like they're gatekeeping jerks and insecure about their own masculinity. Story 36. Being a male body part to his SO. Even if he's a great dad, competent coworker, whatever, if he can't treat his SO with respect, I'm not going to hang out with him. Mistreatment of animals. This is just basic standards of who I will be around, regardless of gender or any other designation. Trying to turn everything into a pissing contest. My masculinity is just fine, and I don't need to prove jack shoot to you. Story 37. One of my mates does this. When I'm talking to someone at the bar, he eavesdrops, and when he hears something he thinks he knows something about or can talk about, he'll try to get involved in the conversation in the hopes that she'll talk to him more. He's a pick-me guy. Story 38. There is a bunch of things, but the latest one is my brother-in-law, or ex-brother-in-law. He left my druggie of a sister, finally, and he ended up with an alcoholic in liver failure. She still drinks and treats my nieces and nephews like shoot. I mean, how can I have respect for the guy if he is going to just keep putting himself in that situation? And with kids, nonetheless. Story 39. I don't usually give this too much thought, but there were 2 times in my life where I shook a guy's hand and it was a complete dead fish. Not just weak, that's like whatever to me, but they held their hands out and did nothing when I shook it. It still pisses me off, and I can picture their faces more than other people who had a much bigger impact in my life. Other than that, loud peacocking. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Story 40. Cheating. There is this notion out there that guys somehow don't view other guys cheating on their partner in a negative light. Nah, man. If you want me to lose respect for you, be unfaithful. Loyalty is supposed to be one of those core traits of being a man. And if you can't stay loyal to your lover, what I am supposed to expect out of you. Also, cheating is such a male body part thing to do to someone, and causes us much unnecessary pain and drama. Story 41. Any man who doesn't take care of their business. You work, you pull your own weight, and don't rely on others to float you or clean up your mess. And you take responsibility for your actions. You take care of the kids, too. It ain't just your wife's job, it's your job, too. You treat your SO as your equal, never less than. That's bare minimum. Some dudes can't even pull this off. Also, any man who gets in a petty argument with their young kids. Story 42. Racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, referring to the sports team they support as we, voting for Reform UK or the Conservative Party, not pressing their work clothes, drink or substances driving, parking their car on a pavement, smoking in public, writing should've or could've in place of should have or could have, being a Freemason, owning a ridiculously large television, using fireworks at home, and any discussion of optimal driving routes on the UK motorway network. Story 43. Misogyny and/or MAGA edgelordism. In other words, incels. And glad you posed this question on this SR and not our Ask Men. Some of us got banned from that subreddit for pointing out the incel behavior among both posters and the mods of that community, even though those comments were in completely different subreddits. Fragile bunch they are. Story 44. MAGA politics is pretty up there. It just instantly tells me you're either not intelligent, not authentic, or not empathic, or all the above. That's just not someone who is going to add any value to my life, unless they're one of the many people whose politics are inconsistent with who they are. Sadly, many people are out there who grew up with a certain political indoctrination and just never had reason to question it. But those are few and far between, and their lack of doubt in the current landscape is harder to ignore today than it was years ago. Story 45. People have added a lot of broader ones, so I'll go specific. Guys who say negative things about their wife or family as some way to seem enduring, or some shoot. Basically, the old ball and chain bit, but everything that encompasses it. They're the first ones to cheat on their wives on a deployment. Ladies should know that if a man disparages you, even if it's a joke, it means they value you less. Immediately makes me lose respect for dudes like this. Story 46. Yeah, he was talking crazy. I had just got off work, and he was messaging me crying about the price on something. Of course, I told him to come talk that shoot in my yard. We squared up. I got tapped twice. Cracked him in his ribs then. My high jerk had just smoked, by the way. Just got off, so yeah. We clinched. I didn't sprawl quick enough and had to yield. Didn't get my jerk beat. Didn't beat jerk, but that was the last time he said anything to me out the side of his mouth. Story 47. Trying to excuse actions of themselves or other men. Example being, well, yeah, he slept with her, but she doesn't look 15. Okay, so as long as they don't look like a child, it's fair game? Disgusting way of thinking. If any of my friends said or did something close to that, they would be 6 feet under. Story 48. In recent time, the ones who advocate for the RP space in a manner of controlling women. Most of the content I've watched and heard, all they do is tell you, the man, how not to act, just for them to do the opposite. They tell you not to date single mothers. Guess the type of women they pick up? Single mothers! Go to the gym for 14 hours a day. They're in the gym for 14 minutes. And some don't even go at all. Let's not forget some of the big names in the RP space, who you never see with other women. They only talk of being with women. Story 49. Blokes that don't hang with gay blokes. Because, obviously, if you're gay, you immediately want to get in their pants. I'm a bisexual man. I don't wear it on my sleeve because it's not that important, but I've met guys who get uncomfortable real fast as soon as I mention it. Could be hanging with them for months or years, but when they find out, suddenly they get all awkward. I'm in a committed relationship with a lovely lady. I'm not planning to change that. Me being bisexual doesn't mean I immediately want to suck your male body part. Story 50. I'd eliminate someone if they, coming from someone who has never eliminated anyone and has probably never even caused real physical damage to another person. It's actually pathetic. I had a coworker do it once. I'd eliminate someone if they talk shoot about my brother, he said while armed on a military installation. I told him his brother was a fudge idiot and then asked when he was going to eliminate me. Seeing as that was 3 years ago, and I'm still alive, it was very clearly unnecessary and baseless posturing. Stop talking about eliminate like it's some casual thing you could do, especially if you haven't ever eliminated before. Story 51. A guy that cheats. If he can't be loyal to his wife and mother of his kids, he can't be trusted to be a friend for me to confide in. The same applies to people that I do business with. If they'll screw their partner over, they won't think twice about doing the same to me. Story 52. Abandoning their children for any reason. I was that abandoned kid at 3 months of age. I know what level of pain that leaves on a child. Even when you get a stepfather, like I did, asked me to be his son and is the GOAT. Anyone who leaves their child is a piece of shoot. Story 53. Dismissing educated professionals, e.g., talking down on men who've been to college and are in white-collar or academic careers, and completely lacking intellectual curiosity with little to no knowledge of the greater world around them. That, and being unable to do household tasks like cooking or cleaning, and being uninvolved with raising their children. Story 54. Or like, I had a Home Depot employee talk my ear off one time about how he's a world-class drummer and how he competed in a drum-off against Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater and won, but he decided not to pursue professional drumming. The whole conversation began, incidentally, because I was wearing a Skeleton Witch t-shirt, which he recognized as probably being a band. Cool shirt. Is that a band? Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a metal band. Cool, cool, cool. I've been playing drums for 40 years. You know who Dream Theater is? I also find it impossible to respect anyone who is incapable of admitting fault and, or unwilling to say, I don't know, in situations where they do not, in fact, know. Also, dumb guys who think they are smart are the fudge worst. I guess none of this is really specific to men. Women who do this would be just as unserious. It seems to be mostly men whom I've encountered that are guilty of this sort of thing, though. So, whatever. Story 55. 1. A dude who constantly virtue signals. I've learned that the harder you try to convince people that you're a saint, the more likely you are a dislike-filled, spiteful little POS behind closed doors. 2. Those guys who always act mad tough and can never laugh or joke around or be the least bit vulnerable around even their closest friends. These have to be the most weak-hearted, insecure little sissies you'll ever meet. 3. A man who has the ability to work, support his family, and give them the best life possible, but instead lets someone else take care of him. They spend their time being jealous of other men or making excuses and playing victim. Story 56. Using any kind of word meant to denigrate another human. Meanie. N-R. Words like that. It shows a state of mind that says, I think I am superior than others, and they are just objects for me to use and dispose of as I see fit. Anyone who thinks like this is, to me, mentally ill. I pity them. Story 57. People who dehumanize others by making fun of them for reasons they can't help, like how they look or where they come from, etc. It's so unnecessary cruel to make fun of a total stranger who has never done anything to you just because they look or act different. Story 58. Believing the whole alpha-beta shoot is consequential, relevant, accurate, a trait of any kind, shape, or form. No, man. Basing your perceived value, or the value of others, the same way we classify members of animal packs is fudge, disgusting, cringe, psychopathic, and I just won't associate with anyone who buys into that. Story 59. If they can't make a single criticism of whichever political party or public figure they like, I find that if they are completely unable to make a single objective criticism, or whoever is their hero, they are likely arrogant, completely unable to be reasoned with, will blindly act, and follow whatever their heroes say without any iota of critical thought. Story 60. Knew a right-wing dude whose wife paid the bills because he thought he was too good to start over again in construction. His previous job was warehouse manager, LMAO. When they shirk all personal and emotional development for gym culture and capital generation. Money and fitness are important, but not at the cost of being a sexist, insufferable dickhead. You know? Story 61. When he tries to sell you on something you both know is bullshit. It's an open sign of disrespect, and we are now enemies. There's a lot of answers on here already that hit home too, though. Basically, anything dishonest or hurtful for no reason, and we generally have problems. Story 62. Not being able to admit they were wrong or made a mistake. I'm a grown jerk, man. I've made a lot of mistakes and been wrong often. It's the quickest way to learn. So if you can't admit those things, then you're essentially being willfully ignorant, and I just can't with that nonsense. Story 63. Not seeing this one here, but maybe it's just so because it's so obvious. But racism. As a white guy, a lot of white guys will make racist comments, assuming you're okay with it. Just wild to me, people assume you're okay with it just because you're not of the group they're attacking. Story 64. I've been in several locker rooms, but I've only ever heard supposed locker room talk once from someone who isn't my friend anymore, in part because he thinks that's appropriate to share, and no one else I know does, including me. I don't even know where that expression comes from. It's not locker room talk. It's not anywhere talk. Story 65. When they think that they can steamroll over other people by being loud, arrogant, and aggressive. They either want you to submit or be aggressive back. When you don't do either, they end up looking very silly. When they're weirdly possessive of women, especially women they don't know well. I've had numerous occasions where I was trying to have a serious platonic conversation with a female student coworker team member, and some guy is acting like we're in some weird competition. They start sizing you up. Man, I'm trying to focus on work. It's really uncomfortable when you're trying to focus on a school project or a work-related task, and one of the team members is constantly derailing the conversation to flirt, especially when the woman is very clearly uninterested. Sometimes you end up having to help set boundaries, and they end up going off the rails at you. At work, this sometimes turns into legit harassment, and I've actually had to run interference for female coworkers or ask people to leave. Then, they get angry like you took their favorite toy away. So entitled and aggressive. Creepy. Story 66. Purposefully acting like a male body part. Major substances and adult beverage addiction. Smoking. Voting Republican. Xenophobia. Sexism, misogyny, and abuse of women. Racism. Anti-intellectualism. Cruelty to animals, children, the elderly, or even waitstaff. Selfishness. Story 67. There's honestly so much shoot that is considered part of being a man that makes me lose respect for my fellow man. A man who just asks themselves, what would any decent human being do in this situation, is someone that I respect. Story 68. I'd say what everyone has mentioned about ignorance masquerading as confidence, etc. And I'd add men who ignore boundaries and call it confidence, who perform strength instead of living it, and who preach values they don't practice. Also men who stay silent when something's clearly wrong just to protect their own comfort. Story 69. The need to prove your masculinity so much you become a genuine problem. Drinking copious amounts of adult beverage until you get so sick you can't remember your name. Shoot-talking your partner. Lighting up 16-packs and terraforming the immediate area. Being obnoxiously loud and physically aggressive. Not only do these things not make you a good man, these things don't even make you a good person. Story 70. Try prove they straight or masculine. Buddy, you know who you are and what you love. Just because you like of feminine things doesn't make you gay or feminine. These people care too much about how other people feel, not to mention, they be toxic as fudge. Try to prove they've better than everyone and show off in front of girls and embarrass your friends to a girl, like bro. Story 71. When they call women meanie, not just as an insult, but when just talking about them. I had a friend in high school that would do it all the time, especially about his girlfriend. He'd say, "Here comes my meanie," and I'd tell him to stop calling them that, but he wouldn't. We stopped being friends shortly after that. Story 72. Dudes who are overly aggressive. I play beer league soccer football, and the amount of guys that are out there trying to hurt someone is really sad. Or guys who crash out and take a cheap shot at someone who embarrassed them with their play in some way. Like, God forbid this guy gets megged in soccer football, because the second you are around him, he's raking the back of your calf with his studs. I'm also like 56, weigh like 140 pounds. I throw my weight around and try not to get bullied off the ball. Sometimes, doing this as a smaller guy and winning because of your lower center of gravity or whatever drives bigger guys up a wall because they feel emasculated. And now, I'm getting headhunted for the rest of the game. I don't mind getting hit or hurt. It's a contact sport. What I do mind is getting stomped on by some spaz who is trying to hurt me. We all have work tomorrow, dude. Story 73. Biblical pseudo-archaeology and/or young earth creationism used to justify traditional gender or social roles. The dressing up of other people's ill-informed opinions as one's own. The smug self-assuredness of having watched a few podcasts where grifters or well-meaning fools lie to them and act like the work of tens of thousands of scientists can be dismissed as if it was nothing. Supposedly all in the name of thinking for yourself or researching all sides of the issue. Meanwhile, I can tell within 2 minutes their knowledge of the subject outside of what they have been told is all just surface level at best, and fundamentally wrong about the basic facts of their own side of the issue at worst. Story 74. Dating people who they could have fathered. Bruh, no, WTF. You know better. They definitely don't. No matter how much you try to convince me, their 20s maturity is a mask that at best covers unresolved childhood trauma. Is that what you want to build upon? Story 75. Thinking that there are toxic behaviors that are exclusively performed by men or women. Every single thing I've ever seen people meanie about men doing, I've seen or experienced women do too, and vice versa. If we're talking from a more generalized standpoint, the downplaying of intimacy assault against men by other men and women is absolutely disgusting. Story 76. Men who are stupidly incompetent in basic life stuff. Example, a friend staying at my place took the towel I had folded and kept on top of the dresser for him, showered, and then put back the wet towel the same way. Who folds wet clothing? He also balled up his dirty clothes and stuck it in a closet instead of asking me where he can put it. It's almost like he cannot live without the women who raised him. Story 77. Bragging about how many women they've been with. 1. It makes me think you're a whore who doesn't care about women. 2. It makes me think you're ruining future relationships for other guys. 3. It makes me think you're a lying sack of crap, trying to make yourself out to be a player, when most likely you only play with yourself. Story 78. I was raised by women, and at some point, there were fewer and fewer men of quality in my life. Eventually, I came to really feel like I can't relate to most men. So much of many men I have known is ego and performative behavior that just gets in the way of anything meaningful. To me, the thing that instantly makes me lose respect for another man is when they don't show honest respect to women, treat them like objects, intimacy as transactional, have nothing but contempt for women. It's a lot of my fellow men out there. I direct film and commercials and will hands down have an inexperienced all-female crew over nearly ego-driven male veteran. Women just get shoot done. Story 79. When they are healthy and are out of work for over a year. I know it's a stigma that I shouldn't care about, but I do get a shoot job while you look for work you're actually suited for. If it's getting up to the year mark, stop leeching. If you're not using any kind of benefits, then your time and money is your own, of course.